Hello and welcome to our EPISD live chat. I'm Melissa Martinez, the Chief Communications Officer for the El Paso Independent School District, and thank you for joining us for one of our Safe Return to School community meetings. With me today, I'm going to introduce a few folks who are going to help me answer all of your questions today. First, we have Dr. Carla Gonzalez, who's our Associate Superintendent for Academics and School Leadership. We have Ray Lozano, Executive Director of Family Engagement, and Elena Bejarano, who is with our Health Services Department. Also joining us is Alan Wernicke, who's our Chief Quality Officer, Lori Enlow, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Special Education Services, and Lila Ferris, who is our Head of Dual Language and takes care of our little ones as well in pre-K. So with that, we're going to have a short presentation for you this morning. This evening, and then we'll have questions at the end. So again, you can chat with us if you're watching with us on Facebook or YouTube, or you can also, if you're watching on our website, you can email us at info@episd.org. I've got a team of folks helping us here to answer all of your questions, so we'll get through all of those. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my presenters here to talk about safe return to school. And Dr. Gonzalez, I'll let you start.
I want to welcome everyone this evening and thank you so much for spending some time with us. Hopefully that we can address any questions or concerns you have as we get ready for Monday, August 2nd, when we welcome all of our students back, and we're very excited to have them back with us. Just a couple of background information points that happened over the summer. The Texas State Legislation was working on Senate and House bills, and one thing they did not approve over that legislative session was remote instructions for the 2021 and 2022 school year. What we were able to provide throughout the pandemic is no longer permitted per the state legislator. Also, the Texas Education Agency has not approved nor provided any waivers for remote instruction. So again, the state did not approve any funding for remote instruction for school districts, and then TEA, Texas Education Agency, did also not approve or provide us any kind of waivers to be able to continue remote or virtual instruction for our students. Therefore, El Paso Independent School District will be providing in-person instruction for all of our students for the 2020-2021 school year. What this means is we are returning face-to-face, and all students will return to campuses for in-person learning 5 days a week. That's all levels. Extracurricular activities will resume 100%. This includes our athletics, our fine arts, our UIL clubs, other activities that we would normally have in a traditional school year. Also, we will be back to regular PE classes. Recess will resume as we knew it prior to COVID, and our cafeterias have reopened for all meal services. A couple of new things that are happening for us in that legislative session that I mentioned. There's a House bill referred to as House Bill 4545. In this House bill, the legislators were very, very focused on ensuring that we provided instructions to help our students catch up from anything they might have lost over the COVID disruption to our learning. So 4545, accelerated instruction, is for students specifically focusing on those that did not perform well on their STAR exams during the past school year, and those that did not do well on their end of course. Those are our students at the high school level for the graduation requirements. A couple of things that this House bill has done is it has eliminated grade retention and retesting requirements for grades 5 and 8. In the past, students had to pass their STAR exams in order to move to middle school or high school. This is no longer a requirement based on this House bill. There is no longer a requirement that, the new requirement, is that students who did not pass STAR in grades 3, 5, or 8 in math or reading, those are the key focuses, will have special supports built in for them throughout this school year. Those are students grades 3 through 8 who were not successful in STAR or end of course assessments. There's two options for them. One is to be assigned with a classroom teacher who is certified as a master, exemplary, or recognized teacher, or receive supplemental instruction, which is tutoring, before, after school, or embedded in the school day. This also can be during our intersessions and in summer school, but our goal is to have these hours completed for our students prior to the end of the school year. Accelerated learning also is for students who did not take the STAR in the spring. So here's a couple of things that will be laid out for our students. First bullet, students who were not successful in STAR or end of course will be assigned 30 tutoring hours to begin. They could have begun past summer. We didn't get the information till the end of June, but starting in August all the way through summer 2022, we'll have 30 hours per subject area the student was unsuccessful in. Utilizing effective instructional materials that are designed specifically for these supports. They will also be receiving this instruction either in a one-on-one setting or a small group with no more than 3 students. That's a 3-to-1 ratio, students to teachers. And finally, the instruction will be received by individuals trained in these aligned instructional materials and under the oversight of our instructional leaders on the campuses. Ideally, we hope that the students, as they go through their hours, will have the same instructor with them for the full 30 hours where possible.
And let me just interject here, Dr. G. I understand some folks on our Facebook Live page are having trouble. We were having some issues on audio with Facebook Live. So please head over to our YouTube channel or episd.org. You can also watch it on our homepage. You can click to our YouTube channel from our homepage. So if you're, we're working on the audio on Facebook, but please switch over to our YouTube if you're still can't hear us there.
And because we do have a lot of focus on accelerating our learning, and by accelerating we mean that our students will come in and be taught at the grade level of which they're entering. Any gaps or any areas that they may be struggling with, we will be sure to build those back into their grade level instruction. That's what accelerated learning is all about. It's not about remediation, it's about meeting students where they are and taking them to the next level. In order to do that, we need to provide a lot of support for our social, emotional, and our overall well-being of our students and our staff. So Mr. Lozano will share a little bit about what we're doing to focus on that to support a safe and healthy environment for our students.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Our intent is to provide students with predictability, flexibility, and opportunities for connection and empowerment so that they feel safe in our schools, emotionally safe in our schools. So to that end, our counselors will be conducting daily check-ins with students, or wellness checks, I should say. And not every student will get a check-in every day, but the counselors will be visiting a number of students daily. So we don't want to certainly create the impression that every single student will have a counselor check in on them on a daily basis, but they will be checking routinely. As a result of those visits, if there's any data that needs to be shared, supports that need to be provided, those needs will be communicated to campus so that they can respond to those needs systemically. With respect to social emotional learning, we'll continue to build on the practice of having, excuse me, common, clear, and positively framed expectations for the school environment, so classrooms, open spaces, and things of that sort, and that's to provide predictability that creates that sense of emotional security for our students. Additionally, students will be supported with a daily check-in. That's a new feature that we're adding this year. So each morning, students will be checking in on an app, and they will log in how they are feeling for that day. If it is evident that a student is struggling, then support will be provided to that student. Additionally, we will also be conducting on a weekly basis, students will have an opportunity to engage in lessons to build social emotional competency in the areas of self-awareness, self-management, relationship skills, responsible decision making. These skills are really important to develop, and we're trying to do that proactively so that students may take advantage of all of the academic supports and social supports that are available in our schools. Additionally, we'll be providing professional learning to our teachers on trauma-informed practices and additional social-emotional practices that can be done outside of that explicit SEL teaching time that takes place each week. And we will also be hosting, I think this is an exciting thing, we'll be hosting parent academies specifically on SEL to create opportunities for parents to partner with us in supporting the social-emotional well-being of our students. And at this time, Nurse Bejarano will lead us through the health protocols.
Thank you, Mr. Lozano. So we're going to do the overview of the health protocols. Self-checks and health monitoring are strongly recommended for our students and our staff. Masks are no longer required. However, if parents would like their students to wear one, they are welcome to do so. Physical distancing is not required, but will do so as a campus can accommodate. Disinfection practices will continue. Water fountains and heavy use equipment like water fountains, doorknobs, handles will be disinfected regularly. Contact tracing will continue for COVID-19 exposures. 10-day quarantines are no longer required for those who have had an exposure but have been fully vaccinated. Hand sanitizer and disinfection supplies will be provided at all campuses, and we're no longer doing routine temperature checks at campuses.
All right, well, that concludes our presentation. So at this time, we're going to be answering some of your questions that have been coming in. Dr. G, one of our questions is, will students be sharing supplies?
No, what we do know is that we need to continue some of the very safe protocols that we had throughout as we return in the spring to mitigate any of that. So we won't be asking students to share. And what we are asking right now is a very limited supply, just enough to get us started for our students, whether they're elementary, middle, or high school. We are a one-to-one device district, which is very exciting, and we will continue to really focus and utilize those resources. So we are asking, for more limited supplies, trying to lessen the strain on our parents, but our campuses will be providing a great deal, and we will be having them separate. We will not have that community share. We do want to make sure that everybody has their own and that they utilize their own supplies, enough for everyone to have an individual set.
Okay, another question, Dr. G, is as noted in the national news this week, some federal buildings went to mask mandates. Why can't we do the same?
The governors, we're prohibited from being able to do that. When the governor put that executive order out with the mask mandate, we cannot require masks at all. The school district cannot override that. We can encourage. We will still have masks if students or visitors or staff ask for them, but we cannot mandate that. We cannot require anyone to do that. We can only encourage and just being safe for our community, but unfortunately we cannot require that. The governor's order oversees CDC or any other recommendations.
Ms. Bejarano, what will be our procedures if COVID rates in El Paso County change?
So we're constantly monitoring information. We'll work closely with the interim superintendent to decide about the classroom or school closures, but that is being vigilant with any data that we receive as far as the levels of COVID in our community.
Okay, one of the big questions we had, Dr. G, is why aren't we offering virtual this year?
As I said, during the summer legislative session, the state will not fund any virtual or remote learning through school districts. So we're not even given that option to be able to offer it. There's no funding available for that. Initially, TEA was leaning towards giving us some ideas or options for that, and we'd actually even applied to be one of the few districts approved. But when the legislative session ended and they would not fund any virtual instruction to a public school, we were unable to be able to support. We know that that is a disappointment. We know, especially with many of our younger students still unvaccinated, we wanted to be able to provide that service, but we cannot. The state does not fund or allow us to do that. There's no funding provided for us to be able to support that, unfortunately.
Okay, a lot of questions on STAR. So
I didn't do a good job on that, so let me.
How do you know, first of all, let's start with, how do you know if your child falls into that category of the extra hours?
Well, these schools will be reaching out to you. If you, in the spring, your child did take a STAR exam or an EOC and you're not aware of how they did, you didn't get any information on whether they met approaches, meets, or masters, all of those approaches, that's a passing score. So if you don't have that information, the school will be reaching out to you. Plus, on your CCRP, in your parent portal, you can access that record for your child, especially the secondary, and it has the test results. So that could help guide you. But if your student did not reach that passing standard, the school will be reaching out to you to let you know. If it was one test, more tests, it's 30 hours per test, so they'll be meeting with you to let you know what the options are. All of our schools, elementary to middle and high school, are going to offer some form of support during the school day, but for the most part, we will need students to come a little bit after school, intersessions, which we have a week in October and one again in March. We may have Saturday schools. We'll offer, in order to have those hours completed, we really want our students to have that preparation before they test again in the spring. So the school, you can certainly wait for that call, look in the CCRP, or reach out to the school to get that information on your child's results. Again, this is anyone who tested in grades 3 all the way through our end of course, which goes up to our juniors with U.S. history. If, and this I'm sure is another question that's coming up, if your child did not test in the spring, they do need to test so that we will know whether they need to have some hours assigned, or if they're where they need to be, they get that passing rate, they will not be required to do any of those hours. That is going to happen at the end of August. TEA is designing a beginning of the year assessment that mirrors a STAR or EOC. So those students who did not test in the spring, they will be asked to test at the end of August. We will spend the first few weeks refreshing so that our students are very well prepared for these. We want them to do well. If for some reason they do not make that passing standard, then they will be assigned the hours at that time, and parents, you will be notified of the different options of how we can get those hours, whether it's math, reading, social studies, science. But again, those that did not test in the spring will be asked to test at the end of August so that we will know where they are. It's very important for us to know how our students are doing and what we can do to help accelerate their learning for this year and help prepare them at grade level to have a wonderful, successful school year and be ready for the next level.
Okay, so here's a good one, Dr. G. What about students who are coming from outside the state? So they didn't have the option to take STAR. Perhaps they're new to Texas and new to El Paso.
We haven't gotten a lot of details from TEA about what we do with students who didn't test, who might be coming in new. As we get more information, we will update everyone. We are getting more information from TEA on specific forms, tracking, logging, all of that. We'll have it this week and next week, and we know school starts. But we will have that information. What we are going to do is ask that all of our students prepare in case they do need to take that beginning of the year. Again, this House Bill 4545 is designed to ensure that our students are where they need to be and help close any gaps that they might be experiencing due to the unusual instructional environments that we all experienced over the last year and a half.
Sorry, Dr. G, you're still on. Is there a way to opt out of that?
Yes, there's, excuse me, we are going to be able to give parents an opportunity to opt out of the hours when they're contacted, and we have accelerated learning committees meet with the parents. They will have that opportunity to do so. We will need them to sign a waiver declining the hours, because this is something that, because it is a state mandate, we do need to show if someone has declined this opportunity for auditing purposes, and to make sure that we've kept very careful documentation of all of our students, and if someone did not participate in the hours, why they chose not to. We want to encourage them, but we understand a parent has the right not to, perhaps they don't want them to take the test at this point in time, and if they do not want the hours, we'll have a way for them to waive and decline those.
Okay, Ms. Bejarano, will parents be notified if there's an on-campus exposure or somebody tests positive in a classroom?
Absolutely. So we'll be doing vigilant contact tracing with every single case that we have. Parents will absolutely be notified if there's a positive case on campus with instructions on how to proceed.
Okay. And another question for you, Ms. Bejarano. What if a child or person wants to wear a mask, or if they want a desk divider? How do they go about that?
Absolutely. So the mask, the student just has to come to school with it. If they're soiled, if they need a new one, they'll have mask out in the front office and in the nurse's station. If they need a desk divider, they just have to reach out to the campus and they'll be happy to provide one.
Dr. G, a lot of questions on class size. So can you discuss how we go about staffing and class sizes and how ESSER funds might help in that area?
In the most tightly controlled class sizes are our elementaries. For our youngest grades through 4th grade, the state caps those at 22 to 1. Once we get to the 5th grade and through middle school and high school, we are staffed as a district at 24 to 1, but that means that that's the staffing for that campus. It doesn't mean that every classroom is 24 to 1. We have some classes that are smaller, some that are larger. What we are encouraging is during the pandemic and when we returned in the spring, we really spread out classes. We try to make sure that we are honoring at least a 3-foot distance between desks, even for our secondary classrooms that sometimes could have 30 students per class. So we are encouraging our teachers to continue to be very minimalist when it comes to their decorating in terms of extra furniture, so that we can maximize student space and teacher space. So it is at our youngest grades 22-1, but as we do get older, they can go up into the high 20s, into the 30s. What we are doing though in situations where we have unusually large classes, and I'm meaning over 30, we can move those classes to other parts of the campus that have larger classrooms. And so even though a teacher may have a certain classroom assigned to them, if they have a particularly large class, they could move to a double room or to a larger area like an auditorium, cafeteria, someplace where we can keep the kids spread out and still be able to provide instruction for them. We know that this is a concern, and we want to, even though we cannot guarantee social distancing as we've come to know it, we will do everything we can to ensure safe surrounding and safe space.
Ms. Bejarano, can you talk about rapid testing?
Absolutely. So EPISD is extremely fortunate. For the last 2 years, we've had a telemedicine program. Through that telemedicine program, we'll provide rapid testing, strep, and flu testing. Parents can join in on the call with a physician. So it's an amazing opportunity, not just for COVID, but for any kind of health assessment that needs to be done completely on campus. And like I say, parents are welcome to join in and see the kiddos and see the provider and join in on those.
And one other question for you, Ms. Bejarano, how exactly do we go about notifying parents of a COVID exposure or positive?
So once we contact trace, all the information will also be shared with City County, who does their own contact tracing protocols, but a letter can be sent out. It's really up to the campus the best way to communicate it, but the letter can be sent email, we can do a call out, they can do a physical letter, but everybody on that campus will receive notification.
Okay, I'm going to stay on you, Ms. Bejarano. Can you again clarify what our process is and what procedures we follow with who needs to quarantine, who doesn't?
Sure. So it is a complicated procedure, and Dr. Ocaranza is always very amicable to helping us with any of our cases. But if we get a positive case, we start in concentric circles closest to the person that's positive. We kind of branch out from there. So we decide who's low risk, who's high risk. There are some steps that we follow during the path of that. But anyone who's considered high risk exposure, unvaccinated, will ask to quarantine for the 10 days. That's an employee or a student. Our students that are able to be vaccinated or employees that are able to be vaccinated, a high risk exposure will not necessarily mean a 10-day quarantine.
Okay, Mr. Lozano, what is your advice to parents? We have a lot of parents chatting with us saying this is all very overwhelming. So what is your advice to parents to both for themselves and their kids sending them to school?
So I think the first thing to do, and I've shared this a few times, is really just listen to your children and validate their feelings. So for example, a child might state that they're really uneasy about going back. Again, just listen to the child and then reassure them that everything is being done to provide for their safety and security. The information that's been shared with you this evening is something that you might be able to share with them in a context that they can understand. And then I think the other thing too, something that's really important and I think that we discount, is the effect that we have on our children, that the emotions that we carry with us, the fears and anxieties that we have. So we have to project confidence and to our children, otherwise they're going to carry the anxieties that we have going into the school year. And we have the benefit of life experiences that allow us to mitigate those feelings, but for children that's a much heavier burden. So again, it's really important that we project a sense of confidence and assuredness about the experiences that they're going to have in our schools. I mean, I think that you've heard this evening that the state and our schools are really committed to doing everything that we possibly can to ensure the safety and well-being of our children. And then the other thing is just really being positive with your children, and that is at the end of the day, just trying to highlight what are some of the positive experiences that they had during the day, what are the kinds of things that they look forward to the next day and in the days ahead. Really taking opportunities to talk about connections that they might have made at the school or new learnings that they've had. So really just trying to find those positive opportunities to capitalize on. Those are things that, just basic, simple things that we can do. It's not really complicated. A lot of it is just really providing that sense of emotional security for our children. And a lot of that is things that we model as adults.
Okay, a lot of questions about whether or not staff is vaccinated. So we cannot require the vaccination or proof of vaccination from it due to privacy laws. However, and Ms. Bejarano can help me with this, we did make the vaccine available to 100% of our employees. We have also had vaccination clinics for 12 and older. And I believe we facilitated about over 4,000 employees and 3,000 students that were eligible.
Yes,
so those are just the ones that we facilitated. That's not accounting for those who arranged appointments on their own outside of EPIC's partners. So while we cannot ask for proof of vaccination, nor is it a requirement, we do know we're confident that our rates probably mirror the counties that are pretty high vaccination rates according to our local health authorities here. So it isn't something we can ask for, but we did make it available to 100% of our employees. Another question we have, Ms. Bejarano, is why are we not taking temperatures anymore?
So we have found over the course of time that this data was not as valuable as we first perceived. So with the guidance of Dr. Ocaranza, he's suggesting that if anyone have a fever in the morning, that they stay at home. During the day, if they're ill, absolutely there will be a nurse. The kiosks are set up in the nurse's office when they walk in, so we'll be able to alert on a temperature first thing. But the ratio to the value of the kiosk just wasn't there at this time. Fever is sometimes a late sign of COVID, so we just didn't want to rely solely on temperature taking. We'd rather the nurse do an assessment on the student.
Okay, Dr. G, if a student has to quarantine, since we don't have virtual as an option, what happens to their schoolwork?
Well, this is one of the benefits of our experience having virtual instruction for the last 3 semesters, is that with the 1-1 device and with our use of Schoology, which is our learning management system that our teachers will continue to use, and that hopefully our students are comfortable with and familiar, and our parents as well, they'll be able to maintain and stay up with their classwork through that. We also continue to have Zoom available to us for students to be able to conference and reach out and talk with their teachers, maybe even be able to interact. Unfortunately, the state requires if a student is unable to attend school in person, there will be an absence code we have to enter. And what we're working on is establishing an absence code that's specific for quarantine, so that we can also demonstrate to the state how many times our students are out. Hopefully this will maybe bring back the need to have a virtual option in some extreme cases like quarantining students. So we will have the available exactly as we've done now. It will be more of an asynchronous style for the 10 days, or really, weekend is part of those 10 days, but the days that they're away, they will be able to maintain their classwork with their Schoology, communicating with their teacher, getting work sent in electronically. All of that will be possible and can continue for them.
Okay, are we using any ESSER funds to hire teachers?
The only ESSER funds that we're using to hire teachers is in our content learning centers. And so there'll be approximately 50 teachers that we will hire district-wide to work on our secondary campuses. But we're spending a lot of our ESSER funds on tutors, on permanent campus-based subs that can help be team teachers and to work with our students in small groups to help achieve some of these hours. Whether it's a push-in approach and actually working side by side with the teachers, having stations inside the classroom where they can work with small groups, 1-on-1, 3-to-1. But investing in teachers that we would only be able to support for the 2 years that we have the ESSER funding. This is a federal grant that is only through 2023, concerns us. We want to be able to have systems in place to sustain, and so we do have, like as I said, it's probably approximately 50 teachers we will be hiring through ESSER, but a great deal of our funding will go to ESSER campus-based subs and lots of tutors. We're also taking to our board this month, increasing the rate of pay for tutors, and we're increasing our substitute daily rate as well to encourage people to come join us and work closely with our kids and make this a very smooth transition back into our buildings.
Okay, what are the procedures for students that might be medically compromised?
Ms. Enlow is here. We do have a service in our district called homebound services. And so for students who are very medically fragile, whose physicians might recommend not coming onto the building at this time, we do have that as a possibility for them to pursue, and it's where instruction comes to the student at home. So that is a process that is working with your campus, reaching out to your administrator, the diagnostician on your campus, and they'll walk you through what documentation we need from the physician in order to authorize those types of services. That's certainly one of the more, extreme approaches, but we have students that this might be the best fit for them, at least until the vaccine is available, especially for our younger students. We also had the 504 program, which offers us a chance to provide some accommodations for students who might need just some special accommodations that could help them be in the building, but with certain supports in order for them to be able to function very safely and continue their instruction with us in a classroom in a building setting. I don't know if Ms. Enlow has any additional? No, she said okay.
Okay. Will we be more lenient with absences when students are sick?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, anytime a student is not physically in our building, we do have to, code them as absent. But if the parents are bringing that information to us, they please call and let us know they're home ill. If it is a quarantine situation, we can code for that. Again, I'm going back to this use of technology and this ability for us to still connect even when the student is at home. This will be hopefully huge in keeping our students up to speed. We don't want anyone coming to school or to work if they're not feeling well, by all means. But we want them there if they're feeling well. If they're not, please connect with us still through the Schoology pages, through communicating, through emails, requesting Zoom conferences with your teachers. We just don't want to lose any more time with instruction, but we do know health and safety will always be the first priority.
And we we'll have our full safe return plan posted on our website. And in there, we do include the guidance from the local health department and what they have provided to us that includes the measures that we are taking. For instance, not doing the temp checks anymore and who will quarantine and how. So we are following the local guidance that was given to us. That's something that we follow. And Ms. Bejarano meets weekly with the local health department for any new developments, any new procedures. So we are working very closely with them, and we take those very seriously for those asking about how we've come to our procedures. Something very important, Dr. G, can high school students go out to lunch?
Yes, they can.
Okay. And just as important, how about football games? Can we go?
Absolutely.
Can everybody go see football games now?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
We are back to 100% open. Again, the governor's mandate included that as well. Not only is it a mask mandate, but it's also we are 100% open. So welcome back to Friday Night Lights, volleyball games, and yes, open, or the food trucks, what life was like. We're slowly returning to that, but we just still ask everybody to be, safe, be cautious, and consider those around you, especially as we're packing our stands again to cheer on our teams.
One question that I received a lot throughout the week is who has the power to change these mandates to virtual? And so that would be the governor and the Texas Education Agency. So at this time, we have to comply with their laws and their mandates. So again, a question I've received a lot over the week is, through the last week is, can this change to where we could offer virtual? And that is going to have to come from the governor, from the state. So I encourage you to reach out to your state representative, your state senator, and share your concerns, because they are the ones that have the power to change our mandates and our requirements here. So at this time, we are required to comply with those set by TEA and the governor. Okay, I think if on Facebook or info, do we have any other questions coming in? Okay, I think we have answered all of the questions. A lot of them are we've answered in the chat on both Facebook, YouTube. I don't see comment. We're not complying with CDC. Ms. Bejarano, can you explain how that works?
Absolutely. So CDC's guidelines or recommendations are taken into consideration, but ultimately our public health department has the overall say-so in our health protocols, guidelines, procedures. So Dr. Ocaranza, we follow anything that he has put forth. He has the option to follow those CDC recommendations or make them more stringent or more lenient, but absolutely we follow whatever our public health department has mandated.
Okay. So again, to the question on is there another alternative, why we can't offer in person? Again, as we stated, the Texas legislature did not fund a virtual option this year. So as you've seen, most districts in Texas cannot afford to offer a virtual option without that state funding and approval. So at this time, we will proceed with in-person instruction for all students enrolled at EPISD. Our first day of school is August 2nd. You should be hearing, if you haven't already, schools are having open houses and meet the teacher nights this week so that you can go and get acclimated, find your classroom, meet your teacher, and learn also from the protocols on that campus from your principals, your child's principals. You're more than welcome to continue to ask those questions of them. They're going to be offering a lot of this information themselves. We have, again, we have this posted on our website at episd.org. You can continue to chat with us, send us questions at info@episd.org, and we will answer those questions promptly. So again, if you have any other questions, that come up after this, if you think about after our presentation. This also has been recorded, so we'll post it as well. So in case you missed it or you know somebody who missed the presentation, you want to share it, you want to review it again, you're welcome to do so. Again, it'll be on our YouTube channel. And with that, I'm going to thank everybody who's joined me today on our panel, and thank you everybody watching on YouTube, Facebook, and on our website. We appreciate everything you're doing to help us keep everybody safe, and we're really excited to have our students back on campus. Teachers have been working really hard this week to be prepared, and we'll see everybody on Monday. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.